here on Jake Miller Sports Talk, WLAF, 1450 AM, 100.9 FM. Jake Miller cruising along with you for the next hour and a half right here on WLAF. Pleased to be joined by Coach Taylor Ownbey, first-year head coach of your Campbell County Cougars. Coach, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. I appreciate you letting me be on here.
Absolutely. Coach, it's your first year here at Campbell County, and everything that has happened with this program, just since I've been alive, the school has not really seen a whole lot of success up until really I got into my latter years of elementary school. You hear the likes of Chris Johnson, Brant Steiner, Josh James, guys like that. And of course, you get into the later years and you get guys like CJ Allen and guys like that. What are your first thoughts coming to Campbell County? It's your first year here, and just want to see how well you're acclimated to the program. What you think of the county so far?
I love it here. I mean, it's a great place to live. The community is 100% behind the football team. They do a great job as far as supporting us. I know a little bit about Campbell County. They came down to Ray County a couple times while I was coaching down there, and they were always tough-nosed kids, and they played hard and everything. So, I'm really excited to be here. I've enjoyed my time here. That I've been here for probably a little close to 2 years, give or take a few months, but it's been a great time since I've been here.
Absolutely. And you're coming off the scrimmage last Friday against Seymour. Obviously not the outing that we, had hoped for. You never hope for an outcome like that. But, as you mentioned to me last week, we were talking, this is your first chance to go out there and see what you've really got from your team and what you're going to be working with. What were your first instincts, going into this game? It's like, okay, we've got this coming up. We got a whole new team, essentially, basically starting off with a blank slate. And you had mentioned a few players to me, such as, Lawson, Stooksbury, guys like that, and going out there and seeing them perform and, giving it their all. What areas did you see that you really liked out of this team on Friday?
I would just say that I thought we did a pretty good job as far as getting lined up. We did a good job as far as, getting the calls in, doing those things, the little things here and there. We just, I felt like we kind of kept it vanilla on offense. We're going to open it up a little bit more this next scrimmage. But, I felt like, just being able to line up, like the special teams. I know we didn't do live special teams, but we got on and off pretty good. We got a few things that we got to work on, obviously. But, I felt like the kids kind of understood the flow of the game. We have a Thursday game script that we try to follow, and we actually did it the first time the Thursday before that scrimmage. So I felt like, as far as like the flow of the game, how it was conducted was a very good positive.
Absolutely. Talking with Coach Taylor Ownbey, first-year head coach of the Campbell County Cougars. Coach, let's jump over to the defensive side of the ball really quick. And, somebody can look at the scoreboard and say, well, 24-0 was the final score. You allow 24 points. But in all honesty, when you look at, the way the game is played now, this is a much faster pace than what you and I grew up with, essentially.
Right.
You go back to our time and, you were lucky to get a game in the 20s at that point. So, being able to, hold them to only 24 points, I think that speaks volumes to the defensive strategy that you put in. And, as you spoke with me last week, you mentioned implementing that 3-4 and just go through that and tell me what you liked about it.
Well, I just think you can adjust to any formation that the offense gives you, as a 3-4 guy. Just going back, to my early years and just, talking with different coaches and things, yes, that the even front, 4-man line, D-line is nice. You get a better pass rush, but, just as far as adjustments, formation-wise, I told the kids today it's one of those things where, 50% of defense is just lining up, and then you obviously got to play better at the snap of the ball. But, our 3-4, I feel like we can adjust to anything that anybody gives us. I think that, with our cover 2 shell, we can do a lot of different things and be kind of exotic later on once we get the hang of what we're doing up front and what we're doing, at the linebacking core.
Absolutely. And you touched on special teams just a few minutes. I was up here on Friday, and kickoff wise, you're getting distance on the ball, you're getting to where you need to be. What really do you expect out of the special teams? Where do you see the biggest impact coming from?
It's a third of the game. You can easily win or lose a game on special teams. So we haven't put an emphasis on it as much because we were just putting in a new offense, things like that. And of course, the defense is about the same as it was last year, but with a new few wrinkles, but it's a third of the game. We've got to put pressure on that third of the game in order for us to win ball games. It might help us later on, especially with us being a young team. If we can really hone in on those special teams, it might make or break us in a game. So I think just our emphasis with that, and I think we're just we're going to put a high emphasis. We practice punt team today, live punt team, so we can understand how we need to block and where we need to be and what positions they need to be in, after we kick it. So.
Absolutely. And, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Coach, was home field advantage. Of course, out here, we got the home field advantage. The crowd's going crazy. The community's coming out to support. Everybody's fired up. You got the student section going down there if you look up into the stands in the bottom left corner. And you don't get that for the first three games of the regular season. You're going to Lenore City, you're going to Cherokee, you're going to Karns, and you're going to have to wait until that fourth game to get that home field advantage. Now, would you rather have that type of schedule, that 3-game away gauntlet at the end of the year or the beginning of the year? And how's that going to play into the morale of the team? How do you keep morale up? It's like, man, we don't have the home field advantage, until the middle of September, essentially.
Well, I think it's one of those things where we're just take a game at a time. And yes, you're right. I mean, there ain't no other place like Campbell County up here up on the hill. It's an exciting time. It's an exciting place. But, we've got to play road games. We've got to play home games. It's one of those things where I think it'll help. I want to say it'll help our young team kind of getting used to being away for those first 3 ball games up front. I'd probably much rather have it at the end, but at the same time, we're just going to have to play the schedule we were dealt. So.
And that's all you can do at that point.
That's right.
And, Coach, one of the things I wanted to touch on, too, is the facility upgrades that have been made here, too, not only the field house, but the weight room as well. I can remember back to 2013 and, looking at what it was like when I graduated, even before that, when I first got here in 2009, and just seeing how far we have come just in the upgrades. I mean, we had, couple of benches in the weight room that had the foam showing,
right.
Just using the old school weights that you see at every gym throughout the country, and just speak a little bit on the upgrades that have been made. And is anybody you'd like to thank for that?
Oh, I'd love to thank everybody in the community. I know however they got this thing funded, it's a big process. It was a long process. We've got 23 racks in there. We're still waiting on a few weights, but, it is what it is with that kind of stuff. We've got some loaner weights that are working in there for right now. But, I mean, it's going to be an elite weight room. It's going to be one of the best ones around this area, if not in the state, to be honest with you. I mean, 23 racks, there ain't many teams that got 23 racks that are available to their football team. And, like I've said before, earlier, it's the foundation of our program. I mean, we're lifting. We're going to lift every day that we can, and we're going to lift on game days. It's going to be the foundation to which we move our program forward. The physical team usually wins. Well, how do you get physical? Well, that's in the weight room. That's where you learn how to be physical. That's where you get strong enough. That's where you get to the point to where you feel mature enough and you feel confident enough in yourself to react and play at a high level and play at, a physicality that we need to win ball games.
Absolutely. And talk a little bit about your staff. You got CJ Allen on staff, of course, and then a guy that I know very well, assistant coach Chris Mays. That guy has been around in my life since I was in elementary school. He's been here before. He's made a couple stops here. Speak to your assistant coaches and what they bring to the table.
Well, the first one is our offense coordinator, Mark Romero. I've been with him at Ray County before. Probably one of the best offensive line minds around. He's one of those guys. I think he's going to do a great job with this offense. He's constantly working. He's a workaholic when it comes to that. CJ, he's done a great job. I love having CJ and Hunter in the building. With the old war stories from over here, I love listening to them all the time. I mean, and they've got tons and tons of them, and I love it because it gives me a sense. It lets me kind of understand where everything has been. Me not being from here, not knowing all the culture, not knowing all the the old stuff, and knowing about prior teams and stuff like that. I mean, they grew up with this, so like they're telling stories from way back when. So it's really exciting to have them on staff. They do a great job. They're going to be great coaches. This is the first year that I know they're with me, and Hunter does a great job with the quarterbacks. I mean, he played lights out as a quarterback here. So Chris Mays, he does a great job. I know it's kind of a homecoming for him. He's been here before. He's done a great job up to this point. In the secondary, helps him with the secondary. Does. And I know I've said it 1,000 times, but he does do a great job back there. We've got another guy, Josh Heatherly, who's going to help us out a little bit, and then I've got another guy coming in a little bit later on. But as far as the staff, we got 5 or 6 guys, and we're working through every day, and they come here to work. That's one thing I told them to start with was, when you're here, let's work, and they have done it. To my liking and to, above and beyond. So
very nice. I was talking with Coach Taylor Ownbey, first-year head coach of Campbell County. And, Coach, in these last 10 minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to do a segment called Get to Know Coach.
Okay.
So we're about to find out a lot about you other than it's the guy that stands on the sidelines and runs practice.
All
right, Coach. So you and I talked a little bit about this last week because, the one conversation that you can start with anybody and everybody's going to relate to right off the rip is food. Everybody has an opinion on food no matter what it is. Since you've been in Campbell County, what are your top 3 favorite places to eat at in Campbell County?
What is it? The pool room down there? Those hot dogs are amazing down there. Charlie's, of course. I mean, their pizza's top notch. And a place I ate at probably about a month ago at the local, I had I forget what I had. I think it was like a cheesesteak or something like that down there. It was delicious. So, I mean, I've found, a couple of the mainstays. I don't know if I know every little place that's around here yet, but, this place has got great places to eat, and I love being here.
That is the one thing about coming to a place like this is, as soon as you walk in, when the food's going to be good, and it's usually pretty good no matter where you're at.
That's exactly right.
That's the one thing that I love, not just here, but, any small town you go to.
Right.
You walk into a place and, when you're at the beach, one of the main rules of thumb is if you see a restaurant and there's a lot of local tags, that's where you need to be.
That's where you need to be.
Well, and of course here, we got kind of a touristy area, during the summer, especially with, a lot of people, I would say 95% of the people that I, served when I was working at one of the marinas on North Lake, 95% were from either Cincinnati, Dayton, or somewhere in between that. So,
okay. All right.
In that case, if all of the out of town tags are there, that's where you're going. But, we talk about food a little bit. What would be, like, say, the primetime pregame meal, not only for you, but for the rest of the coaching staff and the team?
Like a primetime pregame meal. Like if we had, if we could pick it, or what we need as far as like with the kids.
Oh, if you could just pick whatever you want.
Oh, it'd have to be a steak. It'd have to be a steak.
Go steak before a game?
I'd go steak before a game. I wouldn't mind that.
Would you ever go jambalaya before a game?
Oh, I don't know about that one. That's kind of rough right there. But, I mean, I do like spicy food, but, I mean, I don't know.
So we made a mistake one time, going back to my middle school football days.
Right.
We'll follow it in Jacksboro. They call it the Egg Bowl. Well, the game had got a weather delay on Thursday. Go to LaFollette. We're up 6-0.
Right.
So they're like, okay, we're going to finish this game on Monday. Okay, well, we can't do it on Friday because Campbell County's playing. Not going to do it on the weekend, so we're doing it on Monday. Our pregame meal was jambalaya.
Oh, wow.
We could not run. We could not pass.
I bet not.
But we won the game 6-0.
Yeah, I got you.
Those are, I mean, you got to be picky when it comes to pregame meals.
There ain't no doubt. I mean, we're definitely going to be picky when that comes to stuff. We're going to have a lot of the sponsors help us out with those pregame meals. It'll probably be more like, baked chicken and grilled chicken or something like that with some green beans and things like that fuels the body to get them ready for that game. So, but yeah. But if the coaching staff wants to eat, I'm probably going to eat a steak, if I have my choice.
There you go. And, outside of football, as in your position, you probably live the sport. Like, you don't just love it, but you have to live it. What are some things that you do outside of football that get your mind off of football for a minute?
I love playing golf. I hadn't got to play as much as I, especially once I got the job, it's like you said, I got to, eat, breathe, and live this thing, just to kind of get it going for myself anyway. But, I love to play golf. I love to take time. I love to watch movies sometimes, just kind of kick back on the couch. I'm not don't travel a whole lot. I don't do that thing. I like to see my family. You know, my parents they live in Ray County right now. My mom's a teacher. She's about 50 years in. She's been teaching a long time. My dad's a retired principal, and you know, so I mean, education's in my blood. But you know, as far as me outside of this, you know, I'm kind of relaxing, just hanging out at the house. And if I can get a chance to go play golf, I'm gonna go do it.
So, are you one of these guys too? Are you giving yourself a mulligan, or are you playing it where it lies?
I'm playing it where it lies most of the time.
Gotcha.
I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, if it's, you know, if the course, you know, asks for it or, you know, allows me to, I'll, you know, get a drop here or there. But most of the time, I'm going to play it where it lies.
See, and I'm glad you said that because Coach Mays strikes me as the type of guy that's going to top a 3-wood from the back tees and then give himself an 8-footer on the green. That's the type of guy he strikes me as. Nah, just kidding, Coach.
No.
But other than that, you know, we talked a little bit about before this interview, you know, when's the last time you watched a TV show? So what shows are you into right now?
Well, I get back into the old shows. Like I'll rewatch like The Sopranos. I'll rewatch some of like Entourage. You know, a couple of those shows that were on HBO. I just like watching those. Those are from my younger days, things like that. I don't know if I'm into a new show just yet. I like what is it? Game of Thrones. I mean, you know, those type of TV shows I get into. I kind of rewatch a lot of stuff. I guess one show, The Neighborhood, on CBS is pretty good. I like that. Cedric the Entertainer. I like watching that. But, you know, I kind of rewatch shows and do that kind of thing. I don't have really any kind of new ones that I'm into. I'm one of those guys, I'll tell you this, I'm one of those guys that would rather not watch it, you know what I'm saying, and wait till it all ends and then just watch it all, you know. I like to binge watch, you know.
See, and that's how I think a lot of people are. I'm that way, especially,
Right.
you know, especially with the new King of the Hill that just came out.
Oh, yeah,
so,
yeah.
you know, not seen it in years. And then, of course, I'm just sitting there rewatching King of the Hill just over and over, just watching the same funny shows that I've always watched. And now I'm seeing the new stuff and it's like, oh, okay, they actually did a good job with this.
Yeah.
You know, we can sit down and we can watch this a little bit.
Yeah, there you go.
Coach, what's on the playlist right now? What kind of music are we doing?
I'll just mix it in. I get a little bit 90s stuff, you know, early 2000s. You know, I don't really listen to a whole lot of the new stuff. Every now and again, I'll flip it over to the highway on Sirius XM and listen, you know, I guess the Morgan Wallens and all that kind of stuff, whatever's new out there. I'm not a big music guy, but, you know, driving home or something like that, I do like to listen to Joe Rogan, like, you know, podcasts on the way home and back, you know, so I like to do that. But, you know, 90s and 2000s.
90s and 2000s?
Yeah.
All right, we can get along.
All right.
What is the one song on your playlist that you'll listen to that, as a culture, they look at that and be like, man, that should not be on his playlist? You got any songs like that?
I really don't know. I'd like to think there's a few, but I mean, I'm probably my type of guy. You know, I mean, everything that I could say would probably fit my mold, but not off the top of my head.
I would just listen to my show for about 3 weeks, and you'll find some songs that are like,
right.
okay, Jake, you should not be playing this, man.
I got you.
You should not be playing this.
you.
Coach, thank you so much for your time. We'll talk soon.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Stay with us. Jake Miller Sports Talk continues right here on WLAF.